Are you looking for a life of freedom and flexibility? Do you want to have as much success with your family as you do in business? Here at the Entrepreneurial Family Man podcast, we break down the barriers and bust the myths that are keeping you from living your best life. You deserve a thriving family, rich faith, and business success. Visit us at efmlife.com to connect. And now, welcome to the Entrepreneurial Family Man podcast.
How to be light and to be kind in this dark world. I was recently reminded of a quote by my pastor, Ben Corson. He says, "It's not the power of darkness to be feared. It is fear that gives great power to the darkness." Guys, we live in this world that needs more light, more hope, more ways to press into each other's lives and frankly, strangers around us. Whether it's your family or those you're running into throughout the day, we need to be hope casters, generators of love. God has put something in our hearts to share, and He calls us. He affirms us. You are light. You are salt. And we need to be that in this world we live in. And so today we just want to unpack this topic of as men, let's be frank, sometimes our light is kind of dim. And sometimes we're kind of just navel gazers going through a mundane day or week. And we need to look up and look around and see where can we be involved and have impact. And, there's that quote that's been attributed to a few people, but I think Ian McLaren was one who says, "Be kind. For everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. You don't know what they're going through." Guys, let's dig in here and talk about this together. Jamie, Michael, why? Why do we need to speak life into people, to be kind?
Chris, how better could you make an impact on this world or in someone's life than through giving them hope? Encouraging them, helping them come alive, believe in themselves, and be everything that they were made to be. My gosh, this is crucial. This is crucial to our role as Christians, as men, as entrepreneurs, and everything we do. We want to change people's lives. So our light and how that's spread throughout the world is crucial to who we are.
Yes. And again, I don't have the scripture memorized perfectly. So maybe one of you theologians could pull it up here. But that scripture that talks about that if you're trusted with a little, you'll be given more. We all want to have an impact. And we talk to people all the time that want to do something huge. Like, I don't know necessarily what God's will is for my whole life, but we can do small things all the time if we are looking for opportunities. And unfortunately, we miss out opportunities to speak into people's lives, I would say on a daily basis if we're not careful. Because just like we lose hope, there's a lot of other people that have it way worse than us. And we can make a difference if we choose to take action.
Yeah, it's so true. People need that hope, and you don't know what they're going through. At our church recently, Ryan Stevenson was just here about a week ago. And if you don't know who Ryan Stevenson is, he's won some awards here in Christian music industry. And he has several songs that are just these hope-giving songs. But the one song that he wrote is that song that Toby Mac sings, and he sings together, called "Speak Life." And he shared the story of where that came from. And that song has just brought on this whole new layer of context and appreciation for me, hearing him talk about the story, because here in Southern Oregon, where he grew up, he was a paramedic. And he said routinely he would go to these traumatic events and be the first responder to a suicide situation. And they would find oftentimes notes that people would leave saying, I feel like I had no hope. I had no one in my life who cared about me, who would spend time with me, who would share anything with me. And I just wanted to give up. I had no hope. And so he just had this stirring in his heart to to speak life into people, whether he was at the grocery store or in a line waiting or whatever, but just to be a present guy who God had plopped on this earth and said, you are made for a purpose. And I want you to just press into people that you interact with throughout the day. So that whole thing of speaking life into guys is, it brings us all up. I mean, it encourages us. Even the act of doing that brings life to us, right? Of encouraging someone. And gosh, sometimes you never know how that simple word or smile or whatever it is could change their day. It could change their life, frankly.
Your words have immeasurable power. You just have no idea how much of an impact you could make just by saying a simple line of encouragement to someone that you run into. I remember a story when I was back in college. I was kind of in a crazy time of life. I was pretty insecure, even though I was a football player and had big muscles. Like underneath all of that, I was this insecure little boy and really unsure of myself. And I actually at the time managed an ice cream shop, if you can believe it.
Thank you, Noah guy.
There I am handing out ice cream cones and making milkshakes. And this guy comes up to the counter and he looks like a man, like, somebody who you'd really look up to, like just a man. He was masculine. He looked like he had experienced some things in life. And he came up to me and he looked me in the eye and said, I've been a fighter pilot in the Middle East, and I shot down several planes over there. And I see something in you. I would trust you with my life as my wingman. And wow. It just blew me away, leveled me. Here I am, this insecure little boy, just longing for some kind of affirmation. And this guy spoke it into me, and it just turned me upside down. I just started to believe that there's something in me. And here's a stranger who didn't know me from Adam and just decided to take a risk and speak that into my life. And the whole time he was with his wife, his wife is tugging on his arm. He's like, oh, stop it. Leave him alone. But he still pushed through and he said those words, and it really made a huge impact on my life.
Wow. See, that's a great example of him pushing through to do something that affected you in a big way, whereas his wife is kind of tagging him like, just leave the poor kid alone. You don't want to hear this story again, right? But how many times do we miss those small opportunities for a lasting impact? It could be pivotal in our lives. Jamie, you talked about how sometimes we just have to get over ourselves, right? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, and I'm where I resonate with that story, and what kind of hit me is the riskiness that guy took to do that. For all he knew, you were going to just be like, next in line, like, freak, move over and get your milkshake. Yeah. And look what, you needed to hear those words of affirmation, that life being spoken into you at that time in your life. And Michael, I know on the Myers-Briggs, you're an INFP. I'm an ENFP. We have that.
Don't tell anybody about that.
Oh man, that's the personality where we sort of don't want people to figure out. We're squirrel, always picking up on senses. But we need to be obedient to, that guy was obedient to something that he felt in his gut or in his heart, or he noticed something and he decided to put himself in a potentially awkward situation. And I don't know. I want to hear what you guys think about this, but I'm afraid of missing out on those opportunities because I so want to be somebody that makes an impact. And that's seemingly small, but what a potentially huge impact you could have by doing these sort of awkward public what would you even call it? You're calling something out of somebody, or you're seeing something. Almost like what Gunnar did with the mop lady that you were telling me, Michael. It's it can be awkward, but everybody loves being encouraged. We all need it.
Yeah, and what kids don't have is an awkward filter. They just kind of speak out whatever. They really don't have any filter at all. Whatever's on their mind, out with it. It just comes out with it. And I'll share that story real quick. So,
but what you don't pass over what you just said. There's almost like this childlike place that we need to go to where we're willing to risk it.
Yeah.
And like that's probably where we can take a page out of, like, we could probably learn from our kids about some of the cool things that they do for speaking into other people or doing nice random acts.
Yeah. Yeah, we can even listen to Pat Flynn. He was on one of our episodes talking about how to connect with influencers at conferences. And he said, do it in the first 3 seconds or you'll lose your opportunity. I think this is similar. You have an intense feeling that you should go talk to someone and speak life into them. I mean, before that clock hits 3 seconds, just do it. Just go right away. And when Gunnar and I were having one of our Gunnar and Papa days, and we ended up at the mall because the place he wanted to go to was closed. And there's this woman who was mopping the floor, and she just looked just kind of down and out, just sad, a little bit defeated. And Gunnar walked right up to her and just said, "Hey, you're doing a really good job mopping the floors. It looks great. It looks great." And this lady's face just ignited with joy. First of all, because the kid talked to her, somebody noticed her and talked to her, and because what he said was so encouraging. And it's just a simple little thing. He didn't think twice about it. He just decided to say that, and it made her day.
Wow. Yeah. Gunnar, well done. Way not to miss out on an opportunity. That's awesome.
And it's one of those things where it's like there's so many, we talk about from that story to the ice cream shop, and there's so many darkness, doom and gloom kind of inputs around everyone in life these days, right? I mean, it depends on who you want to listen to. And so many people are listening to the wrong thing. And you could be that exceptional voice who's just brave enough, courageous enough to say, no, I'm gonna speak some life and encouragement to these people. I mean, you're sharing that. I don't know why, but I came to the story of Joshua and Caleb. Like, do you remember the story? Joshua and Caleb and these other spies go into the land to survey it, right? And a bunch of spies come back and like, these guys are giants. We're like grasshoppers. There's no way. And all the armies around them, right? Joshua and Caleb say, they give a completely different story. And then he says to this whole army, right? He says, do not be afraid. Don't be discouraged. Be strong and courageous. And then he goes on to say, this is what the Lord will do to all the enemies that you are going to fight. Like he just says, guys, we're going to do this. And here's what's going to happen. And I mean, think if he didn't speak up. Think if the guys just listened to the first group of spies. It's those times where you're intentional of just opening your mouth. I think I heard somebody say one time, like, don't have so many bite marks in your mouth from the things that you never said, right? How many times do you bite your tongue and you didn't say something? Maybe then turn it around. This is an opportunity to open your mouth and speak life to people.
Yeah, that's good. I want to share this real quick, but in the mastermind that we're on, there's one of the guys who's a leader in that group, Andy Traub. He, like, every time we go to a restaurant or there's a group of people that are doing a catering, he always brings the people in and publicly just tells them, like, this is a blessing of what you guys are doing and you're a part of what we did. And so a couple weeks ago, me and Ruthie were at this Christian coaches retreat with PCCI. You guys know that group. You were part of it. But I felt that opportunity to chicken out. Like, I felt like my gut and my spirit was saying, you should honor the staff because they were just doing an amazing job. And I learned that from Andy because I don't know if this is something that comes natural to him or he just got over himself and now this is something that he does regularly. But I got all the people on staff together. I kind of rounded up everybody, and then we just gave them a public we thanked them from the bottom of our heart and said, this was awesome how you guys served. And then we gave them a standing ovation. And I'll tell you, it felt a little weird doing that. But those ladies had like a smile from ear to ear. And I know that they get up in the morning with a heart to serve, and it makes a difference for them to be acknowledged that they're doing something really, really well. But I could have just as easily kind of wussed out,
Yeah, you could have said the salad was a little limp. I didn't really like the casserole, so I don't think I'm going to applaud them.
Yeah.
But this does not require somebody to be perfect or for you to love everything they do. we're looking for things that we want to encourage them in, strengths that they have, gifts that they have, things that they're doing well. Focus in on that stuff and lift them up and let them know that you appreciate it and that it's awesome. I love that example, Jamie.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, that's a good one. You know, we've talked about, like, obviously there's the why, right? We know that the why is, hey, there's all these broken, hurting people, and there's a dark world, and we are called to be light. Like, and we've shared a little bit about the how, but I want to unpack more stories because, frankly, there are so many things around us that we could look to as examples or look for opportunities. So, you know, I love that you jumped into Gunner's story, because that's such a classic way that, Michael, I want to speak this into you right now, because he would not have done that had you not shown him that example many times over.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, he has seen a strong dad who takes those opportunities, and now he's following your footsteps at a young age. So kudos, man. Well done on that.
There's
Jamie.
There's another part of this too, that sometimes we see something in other people that they don't see in themselves. And we could actually be the catalyst to let that giftedness kind of explode or come to birth. And I think that's kind of what we do in the conversations that we have on this podcast and offline, is we call out the things in each other. And sometimes we actually like bestow masculinity or giftedness into each other by saying, hey, Chris, like, you're really, like, Chris, like, I'll share this publicly, make you blush here, but I respect and love the fact that you're the successful guy, and then you're able to be vulnerable with your heart. Like me and Michael, that's both something that we want to do better of. And like, I love saying, like, hey, that part of you that you almost want, like on the 48 Days cruise with Dan Miller, you gave the story, and like, I think you shed a tear, and like everybody else in the audience is kind of wiping a tear off of your face. Like, when you lean into that part of you that God put in you, it blesses other people. And so we need each other to say, hey, like, what you did, like, I know you felt awkward doing that, but you sacrificed for the benefit of other people. We need to call that out and say, that's like a gift that you have, and you need to walk in that. Because when we do that with awareness, we can have even more power.
I love that. Well,
amen. We are learning from you, Chris, on that one for sure.
I receive it.
Receive it. Chris, you had another story about, I forgot who it was, but a couple guys that a mentor called out something out of them. What was it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so yeah, our friend, Bob Goff, you know, he's also good friends with Don Miller. And if you know a little bit about Don's story, which he shares some in one of his great books, Scary Close, he was kind of going through a dark time of relationships and feeling like he was failing and had ended a really long and significant relationship. And he just kind of felt like, gosh, I just suck, you know, and kind of closed off. And Bob, as a good friend, just felt like, I got to reach out. And I remember Bob sharing this story a couple of different times, how he said, I just felt like I needed to call Don. And I called him, I got him on the phone. I said, Don, you are good at relationships. You are a good friend. And you need to hear this, and you need to stop listening to the lies that you're telling yourself. And Don talks about this, how it just took a call. It took a good friend of his to call stuff out in him for him to believe it again. And I just feel like there's so many times we can do that as guys, but we just don't take that initial step that we need, and we miss opportunities. So this conversation just encouraging me to like look around for other ways to simply bless people in a very practical way.
My gosh, we are all so starving for it. It doesn't matter who you are, right? Like our wives are, our kids are. We need that affirmation from other people too. This is so core to us, like feeling encouraged and hopeful.
Yes. Yeah. And not to get off track. This is going to be another podcast episode about like what we put into our minds, but like we need to affirm ourselves by the type of messages, like the self-talk that we're doing. And that's why we all like that. When we were talking about that Speak Life song, it's like you listen to that and you sort of pick up on the spirit of what it means to encourage other people, encourage yourself. So we got to be very careful if that's our heart to speak life into other people, we need to make sure that we're not putting negative junk into our head where we're feeling like a piece of crap, because we need to be inspired if we're going to take that torch or that candle and give light to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes that's a good point, Jamie, in terms of what you put in is going to affect what you put out. And, you and Ruthie are great at doing this. And you also give those examples for your kids to follow in. And,
I receive it.
Michael and I joke about, it's like, where in the world is Jamie this week or this month? Because you're probably in some corner of the continent, or
we're going to France next month.
I know, man, it's crazy. But you live this like free, flexible lifestyle that gives you opportunity to rub shoulders with these strangers and people on the road of travel, right? And now your kids are starting to do stuff. Tell us about this little trip you just took recently where Cecilia did something and you're like blown away by her ability to do this.
It was so sweet. So we were coming back from Cancun. We had a direct flight from Nashville to Cancun, but unfortunately we couldn't get one back. So we went through some big hub. I think it was Houston. But coming back into security from how you had to go through security and check your bags again? But there was this you're nodding your head, Mr. Travel Agent. You guys are world travelers. You know that. It's a plug for like-minded travels. but .com. But there was this Chinese young woman with a baby in a stroller. And like the baby was, I don't know, like less than a year old. And she had these big boxes on this dolly. And she was pushing the cart with one arm and like pulling the dolly with like these, like she was moving all her worldly possessions from her home here. And she was obviously struggling. And this was like hundreds and hundreds of people going through customs. And Cecilia just went up to her, and the lady didn't speak any English. And she was just like, with her body language, basically like grabbed the little girl's cart. And Cecilia pushed this little Chinese baby for like 10 minutes in and out of these lines. And this lady was carrying, and she was like so thankful. She was like, "Thank you, baby girl." Like to Cecilia, calling her like baby girl and saying thank you. She said thank you so many times. And I mean, that lady was just flustered and frustrated. And I think it's cool. Cecilia showed God's love to that lady right there, that she needed a hand, and it was in the form of Cecilia. It was super touching to watch. I was so proud of her.
Oh, Cecilia. That's so sweet. Now, I wonder where she got that idea.
Apples don't fall far from the tree, so probably Ruthie. She learned it from Ruthie.
Probably.
Yeah.
We were going to give you the benefit of the doubt, but it's probably Ruthie. But those are just great examples, right? I mean, those are stories of just sometimes you're the voice of God, you're the hands of God in a situation, and that's why He put us here, right? Is to share that encouragement, share the blessing, share life with other people.
Yes, you almost got to be aggressive and just jump in and do things.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that hard either. It doesn't have to be perfectly prepared, or it doesn't have to be the perfect words. It gets really big in your mind the longer you wait to act on a feeling that you have to do something for somebody else. But if you move very quickly and break that ice, like just the fact that you're interested in offering something can be life-changing for somebody else. So don't get tied up in your own head about how it has to be. Just act on it. Listen and go.
Listen and go.
Listen and go. That reminds me of a story that a few years back, my younger brother was also going through some relationship issues, and just before law school, like finals or whatever, he calls several members of the family, and then he calls me, and he just announced he broke off his engagement, and it was a huge deal. And he had, there's a lot of complexities to it, and I remember talking to him on the phone for a while there and just saying, "John, I just feel like we need to hang out. Like, let's just," and we're, I'm here in Oregon, he's down in LA, and he's got all these finals he's got to focus on. And so he's like, I just don't think it's going to work out. Oh, and then we were leaving for like a couple weeks right after finals. So we wouldn't see each other for a month or two. And I remember getting off the phone after he said, it's all right. Like, we'll just talk more and wait until you get back. And I had this unsettled feeling in my soul of just saying, I know he said this, but he probably didn't mean that. And I talked to my wife about it, who's super supportive of this and of me. And she just said, you know what? Sometimes you just got to show up. And so that next morning I drove to the airport, went standby on a flight down to LA. And I remembered landing and I called him and I said, hey man, how's your morning going? What are you up to? And he was actually just coming back from San Diego. And it's like, yeah, I'm just, going to study and got some stuff to do. And I was like, well, man, I'm actually here at LAX airport and I'm just here for the day to hang out with you and talk. And, man, I remember that.
Oh, that's so cool.
Awkward silence where he was like, no way. And, we just had this beautiful day together as brothers, and hung out and walked on the beach and just talked for hours. And sometimes it is, guys, just that time when you need to show up in someone's life, and sometimes, and I didn't know what I was even going to say. But I just knew that he needed that presence. Right. And I think there's so many times we miss opportunities like that. And I just want to challenge myself. Like we got to take more of those opportunities because there's such beauty. And I think God is so well pleased in those times where we do those things.
Chris, what I really love about that story is you could have just taken him at his word. He said, yeah, I'm fine. You don't have to come down. It's all good. But you didn't. You pushed through that and you said, no, I'm going. Like, I know he needs me. I have this feeling that I need to be here. And you went anyway. What a cool story. And what a difference that has made in his life, I'm sure.
Well, thank God for a wife that supported me on that too. But, I think there's just so many times. Maybe that brings us to guys, we're kind of closing here. Just the challenge for you. You've been listening to these stories and you probably have some of your own. Maybe you don't for a while. Maybe recently you just haven't taken that opportunity. As we've challenged ourselves today and we've challenged each other, we challenge you now. I mean, look around, open your eyes, look for opportunities, open your heart and your ears. Take, even this week, find an opportunity to take a risk, looking for that opportunity to speak life into someone else. Maybe you as a family go and do something for someone. But I want to also leave you with this. Maybe there's even a paradigm shift you need to make in the types of people or the types of things you can do, or even the types of circumstances around you where you might want to act one way or say something one way, but maybe you need to do it a whole different way. And that reminds us of a story that Stephen Covey shares in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Michael, I want you to share that story as we end here.
Absolutely. I remember a mini paradigm shift I experienced one Sunday morning on a subway in New York. People were sitting quietly, some reading newspapers, some lost in thought, some resting with their eyes closed. It was a calm, peaceful scene. Then suddenly, a man with his children entered the subway car. The children were so loud and rambunctious that instantly the whole climate changed. The man sat down next to me and closed his eyes, apparently oblivious to the situation. The children were yelling back and forth, throwing things, even grabbing people's papers. It was very disturbing. And yet the man sitting next to me did nothing. It's difficult not to feel irritated. I could not believe that he could be so insensitive to let his children run wild like that and do nothing about it, taking no responsibility at all. It was easy to see that everyone else on the subway felt irritated too. So finally, with what I felt was unusual patience and restraint, I turned to him and said, "Sir, your children are really disturbing a lot of people. I wonder if you couldn't control them a little more." The man lifted his gaze as if to come to a consciousness of the situation for the first time and said softly, "Oh, you're right. I guess I should do something about it." we just came from the hospital where their mother died about an hour ago. I don't know what to think. And I guess they don't know how to handle it.
Thank you for listening to the Entrepreneurial Family Man Podcast. Visit efmlife.com to connect with us and others like you who are pursuing success in enterprise, family, and marriage.